What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the We Get to Do This podcast. Very exciting guest this week, Kaylee. Who do we get to have on?
This week we had on John and Kate of Wild River Running, a newer running store out in Stillwater, Minnesota.
Super exciting times, and I hope you all enjoy the podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome Kate and John. Super excited to have both of you on the pod this week, and like I was saying, we're kind of feeling blessed with a couple celebrities on the podcast. I think we met officially. The first time I met you was when I biked out to Stillwater, that's almost like a year ago now, 8 months ago. And I thought you were open, and then I was really sad that you weren't, and rolled up to the store and saw you sweeping, hard at work already. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, what's up? And then we started chatting, and then Kate, I think we just met through Instagram, a month ago?
Yeah.
Officially, or a month and a half?
Probably, but I knew, I saw your bike. I think you posted something on Instagram, when you biked out to our store, and I was like, this is cool. Also, who is this? Who is this person tagging us on Instagram when we're not open yet and biking from the cities to come check us out? But that was really cool. And then I started, you're really the celebrities because I could Google you and find you. So that's,
I can Google you and find you. Honestly, that's not a high bar though, but I appreciate that. Well, we always start every pod with asking, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it? And I'm going to turn it over to you two and have you explain that for us.
you can go first.
Sure. I'm John Leaf, and I'm half of the owners of Wild River Running. It's my wife, Kate, and I's first venture into small business. We were teachers before this I was 13 years teaching, and then just kind of decided to take a leap of faith and open up a specialty running store in Stillwater. So what was the second part? Why do we do it?
Yeah, why do you do it?
Oh, man. Without being crazy long-winded about it, we've been running. I started running when I was in 7th grade. I'll let Kate kind of speak for herself, but I started running when I was 12 at Chisago, just north of the Twin Cities. And so, I've been running for 25 years and kind of loved the community aspect of teaching and, working with people and just that kind of thing. But then I think opening the running store allowed us to kind of blend those two things, like the love for running and then the love for working with people and kind of being a part of the community. And so it's kind of summarized as I can. That's why we made this leap, is to take something that we've been doing probably longer than any other thing in my life, with running, but then add it with some of the skills we've been building and some of the pieces that we really liked about teaching, and kind of put those two together. So that's me.
Yeah. And I'm Kate Eggers, the other owner of Wild River Running. And yeah, John summed it up pretty well. I think we were looking for a change. I think, for me especially, I went into teaching absolutely loving it, loving working with people, loving that just nothing is the same, day to day, especially if you're teaching middle school, but also after 12 years in the classroom, 11 years in the classroom, just needing a change, really. I just didn't think, I don't know, I don't want to do one thing for the rest of my life. And like John said, running has always been a huge part of our lives. So being able to just blend those things together has been really great.
Congrats on taking the leap. It's super exciting.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even, what are we, 8 months? Is that right? Not 7 months?
Yeah,
then?
7 months, give or take, something like that.
Yeah. And we still love it. It's still a good decision. So
It still feels fresh.
yeah.
John, you said a lot of the skills with teaching and having this now. What do you mean by that? What skills would you say?
Oh, man. I think, we're still so new to small business and then running stores specifically. So we're absolutely rookies, but at least with my take on it, the first bit since we've opened with teaching and small business, you need to be such a Swiss Army knife. I mean, you need to gain all these different types of skills that are not related. With teaching, you like go to school and get your degree. If you're secondary education, we were middle school, you get your degree in a science or language arts or whatever. But then you get into teaching, you need to have all these people skills, both with like whatever demographic you're working with. We were middle school again, so 12, 13-year-olds, but then parents, you got to be able to work with them. Your colleagues who are these other like college educated people that may or may not, you're doing the same thing, but you have totally different skill sets in terms of what and the types of things you're teaching kids. So you have all these relationships you need to manage. You need to be extremely organized as a teacher in terms of like just keeping track of like these 190 relationships and even just logistics of grades and stuff like that. So I can go on and on about all the different teaching skills that you need, but it's like limitless, right? That would be, you could sit here for an hour and talk about it. And then we quickly kind of found that for small business that you need to like, with opening the store, you got to, same thing, you got to be good at relationships. That's honestly probably a lot of jobs, right? But inventory management and kind of like figuring out, logistically what shoes you need to have in the basement and how much. But then there's kind of this art side of it, I guess, or like just kind of predicting what people are going to like, whether it's the color or the models. I mean, you can get told what's the best seller, but then it's one thing to be told that, this shoe is a good seller, and another thing to actually like move through it and have success with it. So I just think from pretty early on in the path down the small business, we're utilizing all these skills, and a lot of them from teaching were transferable. Like I said, the relationship piece, the organization piece, the creativity side of it. I feel like teaching, you need to be able to get really creative with, maybe not having all the resources all the time, or having to approach something in a different way that you thought was going to be one way, and all of a sudden you're pivoting because, X, Y, or Z reason. And I think that's definitely, you got to always be on your toes with small business, just like teaching. So a lot of transferable, like what they call on teaching, at least like soft skills that we spent all this time honing as teachers, and then kind of fit right into small business. So
Yeah. Like you guys know, being like able and willing to work all the time. Like that was the teacher life too. And that's our life now, except for we don't get summer break.
Yeah.
But we do have a more leisurely day to day, which is nice.
So they say that, like, this reminds me of how oftentimes we talk and say entrepreneurs are kind of born with a certain mindset, or maybe it's sometimes achieved, and like you can see patterns at a younger age of being an entrepreneur, even if you're not like running a small business as an entrepreneur, right? You can be an entrepreneur focused teacher. Do you two feel like you always had that in you, or was that something more recently that came about? What's your take on that?
I feel like I've always just kind of wanted to like walk my own path. Like even in the classroom, like never followed a textbook, never had like a super set curriculum. So just kind of like what John said, just figuring things out and finding what works for you. So yeah, I guess, and just not ever wanting to do the same thing like day to day and for the rest of my life. So kind of. I don't know, what do you think?
yeah, I don't know. I think it's like you're probably capable of a lot of different paths. Like from a young age, right? There's like nobody's like a simplistically like set up as like an entrepreneur or not or whatever. But I think like you might have some tendencies that then you kind of like grow from a fairly young age, perhaps, or when you hit middle school or high school, and it's like maybe you have a teacher that inspires you, or your friend group that you fall into, or like a sport that you fall in love with, and like those things can kind of like stack up for you to have that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like Kate's saying, like we're so new to being entrepreneurs, like in the business side, but like I think we're both independently minded in terms of like how we approach teaching too, of like we like doing our own thing and still mesh that with being part of a community too.
We feel really fortunate that like, I mean, even like meeting you guys and getting to connect with you, like there have just been so many pieces that kind of have fallen into place to like just make sense for us to open the store. Like, I think if we hadn't been teachers, it would have been a lot harder to just like, oh, if we were doing something else and now we're going to open a running store. I think that really helped, especially John coaching cross country and the relationships that we have with kids and families there. I also will say there are a lot of teachers that are now small business owners.
There's a connection.
So there probably is
Sure.
a connection. A lot of people come into our store and they're like, oh, we heard you were teachers and we're teachers too, or we used to be teachers. There's probably at least 2 other couples I can think of in downtown Stillwater that own businesses that used to be teachers.
Funny.
I mean, I feel like teaching in itself, similar to coaching, that's got to be one of the most valuable skills that you can develop. And that can be transferred to a lot of different things that we're talking about, entrepreneurship in this sense. That's how I feel. I mean, if you can teach something, like you could use that in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And just even being able to connect with people, like you've been saying, like the customer side of it, like making each person feel like an individual and feeling seen, and even just like remembering the names of everyone who's walking through your door. Like people like that. People like to know that they're remembered, that they are wanted in a space. And so I feel like that's like probably a super transferable skill that you guys have.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's in the 7 months that we've been doing this, almost every single person has come and tried on shoes or bought shoes from us or anything has just been like really great and really happy and supportive of us, and that just feels so good. And like you said, just remembering those people that came in October that are coming in now has been really, and I surprised myself, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, usually I'm not that good with remembering people's names, but like Anne, who bought the A6 Nimbus in November of this year, just came back in, and it's like those little things that you're like, I don't know how I remember all of that, but I do. Probably because you spend so much time talking like through with what do you want to use the shoe for, and like what have you liked in the past, what do you not like, what's weird about your feet, if there's something weird about your feet. So I think that's the best part of the job by far, is just like helping people find something that they're really gonna like to just get outside, get running or walking.
I also feel like when you're really passionate about something, that then those skills kind of just like more automatically come. And clearly you guys are both very passionate about running. And then I feel like the shoe piece, the sales, like, yes, those are still things you need to like apply and work on. But like, I feel like it's so much easier than if you were selling medical equipment or something like that you had no interest in potentially.
Yeah,
For sure.
Unless you do.
Unless you do, then that's great.
And that's the next thing.
we probably have gotten even more. I mean, we're passionate about like our running and our training, and obviously when people come in, there's 2, but also have our one employee that we have, Scott Christensen. I think that's also like up to the game, like helped us, because when you listen to someone else talk about running too, you learn so much. And like Scott is incredibly thorough, and he still does this for a job. He like travels around the world and talks about coaching and running. So to just like to listen to someone else fit someone and watch what they do, like you gain so much from that as well. So that's been really fun.
Yeah.
Can you take us a little bit in depth into when you made the leap and how did that come about? Whose idea was it? And can you just tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I told Kaylee a little bit on our run. But
Yeah. I mean, like the initial shorter version we give, and then I can extend some, is like we have a physical therapist, chiropractor that we go see. I've been seeing probably for like 9 years or something like that. Ross Cook, really good at what he does dry needling and all this other stuff. So he's been working on us for all these years, and you're getting work done for an hour. You're always like shooting the breeze post work, and just in that case, a lot of the times you're like, teaching, you're like frustrated or whatever, you're talking to him about these things. And he would always be like, oh, you should just quit teaching and open a running store, one in Stillwater. He lives in Stillwater. He's like, there's not one near. It's a great community. Like, you should do that. And for a lot of years, probably 6, 7, 8 years, we were just like, we're not going to do that. Like, we don't know anything about that kind of stuff. We're just not going to make that
Sounds really
jump.
hard.
Yeah. And, but then at the parallel time of this, I mean, I would say starting kind of in COVID, maybe even a little bit before that, a lot of people probably have this with their jobs, but you're like driving home after a hard day at work and we commute together. We were at the same school and you're just like, we can't keep doing this till we're 60, 65. Like, we gotta think about doing something else. But I think a ton of people, us included, get stuck in like, okay, but then what? We've only been teaching. That's the only thing I've done. I was 23 when I started teaching. Like, what else are we good at? Like, that's the thing that we have done with our lives. You'd have to go back to school, and then that just sounds like a mess, So that was kind of like the big barrier for a long time, as you're kind of like dissatisfaction. I mean, there's so many things we liked about teaching, but as it's kind of like steadily in the background rising a little bit every year, you're just don't feel like you had another option. So you just keep going and make the most of it, right? And then, the second part of the shtick that we usually will give to is like it was the fall of 2023. I think we had at our building just had a really particularly tough start to the year. I think there was a lot of factors, but for whatever reason, it was like second week of September. And, we've been teaching long enough. Usually you kind of get the rhythm of like, if you have a tough year, you might start having behavior problems in like October or something like that for the most part. But I was having trouble with like kids sitting down on their seats like the second week of school. And I'm like,
Wow.
I haven't had this since I was like a first year teacher. I don't even know if I had it when I was a first year teacher. I was like, you can't go on like this. And it wasn't just seats. It was, there's just a lot of things, behavior and a number of other factors which aren't worth digging into for the sake of this podcast. But it was a tough start. And so I happened to have a needle appointment with Ross, our PT guy. That's like second or third week of September. And he brings it up again. I'm like, kind of like, no. And then I like was driving home and then we were like eating dinner that night. And this is in, again, September. And I'm just like, maybe I should, maybe we need to think about this. Like, maybe I should run some numbers on it and just start thinking about like, what would we need to learn even? Because you don't even know where to start. But I can remember sitting on the patio, clear as day, eating dinner. And we're like, maybe we actually need to like, at least start thinking about it. So within those like first couple of weeks in September, end of September going into October, like I just ran some basic math of like how many shoe stores are there, how many people basically does it take to support a shoe store, very back of the napkin type stuff. And then like my very rough estimates of how many, you start thinking about like revenue, like what do you need to live on? Like how much money are you going to make on each pair of shoes? You kind of start digging into that over those couple of weeks. I like checked out, I think the first business book I read was Small Business for Dummies, which is actually more complex than you'd think. Like a lot of those small business or those for dummies books are more complex than you'd think. But then I read like another intro to small business book, right behind that. I think I read like 9 books between mid-September and probably like mid-February on small business. Because then you start digging in, like marketing for dummies and like you start getting more complex, as you go.
Accounting,
yeah, stuff like that. And then, obviously talking with Kate about this and thinking about like, do we want to make this jump to Stillwater? Because that's this other aspect. We're going to like overturn our life too. And is it like worth upsetting the cart and all these other things of our life that we liked for this big change? Because we're feeling like the sustainability of the career is not there. So the other component to that is like both the kind of any small business, if you Google like what you need to do, you got to make a business plan, right? And then it's like they tell you that almost the small business books, like step by step, you need to have this in the small business plan, this in the small business plan, and so on and so forth. So started like building that up. And then again, the more you read, then you kind of rip apart the one that you had and change it and whatever. And once we got it to a spot that we thought was good enough, well, actually, I'm going to back that up a little bit. I also we've known the head Stillwater coach for a long time, like ran against him in college and stuff. And I like pulled him aside at state. That would have been early November. And I was like, hey, we're thinking about making this big life shift. He's a teacher too. He's a great guy, Ryan Miller. Like, can I get a beer sometime and pitch it to you? Because I think like you'd be like a huge. You could tell us whether it's a totally dumb idea or not, and he'd know because he also worked at a running store and stuff. So he was like very much a good person to bounce ideas off to someone that we thought we could like trust. And then kind of got our business plan, had a beer with him. He's like, yeah, I think give it a rip type attitude. And then I think who did we meet with first?
We
in the actual running industry.
we met with A6,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So just like I was saying, just, so many things falling into place, being a part of the Twin Cities running community, which you guys know is like amazing but also like really tight knit. We knew so many of the shoe reps. So yeah, just like having dinner with the A6 rep, who is our friend, and then like pitching it to like the on rep and just having them be like, yeah, like I think you guys should do this, was a huge boost, like a huge motivator. We also, I don't remember where in the process we did this, but just like the money that it takes to open a small business, like for us, because we needed like the shoe inventory, we needed to find a space and pay rent on it. So we remembered when the brewery in our neighborhood opened and they were like knocking on door or like sending letters maybe, for just like crowdsourcing. So you could like give them $1,000 and then get whatever in return. So we ended up meeting with a couple different breweries, the owners, like the founders, about crowdsourcing. And that was actually really helpful and something that we ended up doing to get money to open.
So like, yeah, once we kind of got like the business plan, I think that was like not embarrassing. Like you can share with some people, and then again, you'd like get some feedback early on with people that you trust to read it, and then we'd go back and change it, and then you start meeting with the reps, because that's a huge hurdle for running stores. Is like not every shoe. You're not going to just open any random account. Like you can't open in St. Paul just because you want a running store. There's already shoe stores there that they're working with, and so we needed to make sure that they'd be willing to open with us, the big brands. So, hypothetically, there are running stores that start with all kind of smaller brands, in terms of running, at least like Under Armour and stuff. But that's a hard path, right? It's hard enough if you're opening with big brands to make it. So, yeah, we met with the reps. We start, like Kate was saying, we kind of in the middle of the winter, we kind of started figuring out the finances. Like that was another kind of parallel thing with the business plan, was like, well, how much money do we need to raise? Like you just kind of do back of the napkin or Googling even at first of like, how much money do we need for inventory and how much money do we need for this? And then you kind of show it. Again, we met with some other running store owners, in and out of the Twin Cities, actually more out of the Twin Cities, honestly, than in like,
we happened to, that fall, I ran the Indianapolis Marathon, and I ended up running it with the owner of Detroit Running Company. Huh. So we did a good chunk of the race together. And, when you run that long with someone, like, oh yeah, what do you do? And he's like, well, I own this running store in Detroit. I was like, no way, we're going to be friends.
Yeah.
So he actually helped us a bit.
Via email, Google Meet. I mean, it's just nice to have somebody that's like you're not worried about taking their business at all, like, or like competing with them, even kind of, they're 2 states away, whatever, and super helpful. We kind of turned our spring break trip that year to, we like made sure we stopped at a couple of running stores and met with, the owners when we were on vacation, because it's the same thing. It's like nice to like just get their perspective and tell them what you've been working on, because then you are always discovering new things that you're like, oh yeah, we got to figure out like the legal side of it, that sort of thing. So we kind of just kept progressing that all through the winter and spring, knowing, if at any point you hit this barrier that you can't go on, it's like at this point it's just lost time, right? We hadn't committed any money yet. So yeah, I don't know if this is still too long-winded, but we hit
Oh, this is great.
Great.
Keep going.
nice. We hit we got a realtor probably in the winter, a commercial realtor, to start looking at spaces because we're like, okay, we actually need to like start looking at that.
They know Chad, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we had known that can take time, right? That definitely is like a time consuming. Like you might have a space that you like, and then it still might not be available for another 2 months or something like that. So we kind of started looking at that. Downtown Stillwater is super tight. I mean, we had been kind of loosely eyeing what was available downtown or spaces that looked empty. We made a trip late September, like right when we were just kind of a dream still. And like, nothing's really popping up. Or if there was ever empty storefronts, they'd already be spoken for. Like before, there wasn't ever a sign on the window, they're out. And so Googling online or like even using like a realtor portal online, like just nothing that we wanted that's like downtown ever hit that. Like you needed to either be on it or you need to know people or probably both.
Except for one place that our poor realtor, they like strung him along for a very long time, but that's another story.
Yeah, totally side story. So there was one place, but then we were just like, it wasn't working out. Then we weren't getting much traction with that. And so then, at the same time, the brands and kind of like the fundraising aspect of it, like that stuff's starting to come into place by like April or May that we're like feeling confident. Like brands won't open you an account unless you have a space. So it turns into a bit of a catch-22.
Because you don't want a space unless you know
brands.
that the brands are going to open you.
Which I understand from the brand's perspective, because if you don't have a space, like who are you? You're just somebody with an idea. So we're kind of like, and then we're like leaving. So we had told our principal back in February, but we hadn't really made it public at school yet that we're like leaving this place we'd worked at for 10, 11 years, So that kind of all came to a head like mid to late April, I would say, where we're like telling our colleagues that we're leaving. And then really starting to in May, we decided that we're going to move to Stillwater. So we like put our house in Minneapolis up for rent because we didn't want to like sell it yet. Plus that's just another layer of complexity you don't want to get into when you're like trying to work on all this other stuff. And that's when you really start like making some decisions that are, I don't want to say permanent, but like you can't go back. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I guess we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Like at that point you're committing for at least, yeah.
Well, beginning of June, we didn't have a house to live in anymore because we were having renters move into our house. We didn't have a job, and we also didn't have a storefront.
Yeah.
So
that's a scary stretch.
Not a good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Living life on the edge.
Right. But then it was like, I remember this because we have an annual like barbecue with our friends every year. It was like probably the first Saturday of June. So like June 5th or 6th, something like that. We had been going into downtown Stillwater probably once a week at that point to like look at apartments or look at a storefront or like whatever. And we, there was a space that had a for sale sign on the window. We had looked at one across the street. It was already like spoken for. Then we saw this for sale sign, and but the lady was trying to like sell her whole business, which we're like, we don't want that. It was like a salad charcuterie place, like a restaurant industry. We're like, we don't want that. So we like walked away. We looked at like one other spot, but it was like that wasn't gonna work either. It was kind of already complicated, and we're like ready to leave town. And we're like, we need to go back and at least talk to this lady because she wants out. We don't want the whole business, but like maybe we could work something out. So we like talked with her. We said, could we work something out just to get a lease? We don't want the business, whatever. And she came down in her asking price, but she was like, she wanted to like sell off all of her inventory in addition to like getting, transferring the lease ownership basically.
Mm-hmm. She wanted us to buy all of her
inventory and stuff like that. So we like, she also had said that there was other people interested. We don't, who knows whether that was true or not, but that's what, you're operating under the assumption that somebody else might come swooping in and take this. And mind you, again, this is the first spot that actually had opened up that we were like, oh, this could actually be a spot that's open. It wasn't already spoken for per se.
Mm-hmm.
So we like went back again the next day because it was a small space, and with a couple of friends, we met Mike Renault. If you've known the name, he's a great dude, friend of ours. Kind of drove down from his home in Osceola and looked at it. He'd worked at deer running for a long time. And then Ronnie Hamilton, one of my colleagues at Hopkins that I coached with for many years and we taught with, she came, looked at it. She just got a good eye for design. They were like, it's small, but you can make it work. It's a great location. Like, you should do it. So we got an itemized list of like what the inventory was, but handwritten. But then it was also like kind of like a deadline of like, well, there's this other people that are going to come back on Thursday, so you kind of need to let me know by Wednesday or whatever. So this is a tight timeline. I like went home. I think we like were kind of just loosely Googling like how much is this worth use, like this refrigerator, this commercial refrigerator, this freezer, like these things. Mm-hmm. Not, it's not an exact science at that point, but you're just trying to get a ballpark number, like how much is this stuff worth and how much is she asking for it? And it was like way off, like way off. So we had kind of been on this emotional roller coaster these 24, 48 hours. Like we went from like, yes, we're going to do this. And then I was calculating that. I'm like, we can't do this. This is ridiculous. Yeah. We're going to be underwater on this by a long shot. So we like tried to counter with her, but she wasn't really all that interested in countering. And so we were just like, we got to walk away from this. Like, we can't do this. And it was interesting at the same time, we'd like kind of gotten maybe some hope with another space, which ended up being a dead end. But at the time we didn't know that. So we let the deadline pass on the space.
Yeah.
And the night we let it pass, I could not sleep. I woke up I probably slept for like an hour, and then it was like one of those things where you like go use the bathroom or whatever, and then you lay back down and your head's just spinning. You're like, kind of like what we said. We just walked away from our job. We just rented our house for the year. Like, it's summer, so we're still paid through the summer. Like, we could wait, but if we wait, we're going to be like having to pick up other work, or we're going to just be like, losing money on like out the door. Like, I think we need to like do this deal with this lady. And so it just so happened that she like called us back that next day and offered to come down a little bit on what she was asking. Not to the extent that I thought my rough math could like get us back that money, but I was like, well, at least it's not as bad as it started. And like, I kind of did, again, ran some like parallel scenarios of like, well, if we don't do this, like it was a really good, pretty solid deal for rent in a good location. And again, we have income through the summer to like work on that. If we don't have these things and we like wait till October, we have a more expensive place, we're actually going to lose money because of all those other factors. So even if we have to pay up front for stuff that we don't want, like, it was worth it. So we said yes to her. We like set up a meet time. Like, it just was like the most, I wasn't even nervous about it, but I think it was like one of those moments when you're like, this is it. We like met in a Fleet Farm parking lot and like
wrote a big check at Fleet Farm and got the keys.
Got keys, and we like walked away, and we're just like, okay, now we're committed, So, but then the good thing was like we got in that lease July 1. So I mean, it's only like 2 weeks later that we like were in that space, and we had that whole month to kind of start selling
refrigerators and colanders.
Yep.
And a truck.
Facebook place.
You didn't want any of that for the business?
There are a lot of people that were trying to convince us to keep that truck in there.
Yeah. A massive kind of, body of a Ford truck, a vintage truck that had to get cut up.
Yeah. It was really cool, but it just...
Yeah.
It didn't fit.
So that was, what was that? Basically July we spent doing that.
Yep.
And then August it was mainly clear by August. We were still moving a couple of things. We actually met a lot of interesting people though on Facebook Marketplace. And I mean that in like the most positive light. Like other entrepreneurs that were starting their own business that wanted a cheap refrigerator, or like people from like small towns in eastern Wisconsin that needed it for like City Hall, like our church or something. Like, I wrote them all down. I mean, we met some just phenomenal people. So yeah, so then we were like pretty clear by August. We started doing build out, like making the space ours and like repainting walls, like putting up the shoe wall, getting permitting within these cities probably like kind of a pain. We ran into some roadblocks with that, but cleared that.
Yeah.
And it was funny, like way back in, I don't know, probably the winter. We just like we're like, what date should we like put down for opening day? Because you kind of have to have one just to have a timeline. And we said like, oh, let's just aim October 2nd.
No, we said October 1st.
October 1st, maybe, yeah. And we weren't sure we were gonna make it, but we hit end of September, and we were still doing build out. But we're like, okay, it actually looks like it's not like a charcuterie place anymore. It looks like it's in transition at least. And then by then we had opened up all the accounts. For the most part, we had a couple of brands kind of lagged, but nothing like major. Like we had Brooks. By then we had Saucony. We were opening with Saucony, and we had like put in orders. Asics, yeah.
Yeah.
And so those started showing up like mid-September, and so we could kind of like learn like our point of operating system and figure out that stuff over those couple weeks. We were kind of starting to do some like really small shoe orders for families and friends that we could put in orders for, and kind of again practice figuring all those like the kind of the software logistics. And lo and behold, we were like October 1 was our opening day, which was crazy.
Yeah.
And then just kind of kept growing from there, I guess, over the last 7 months.
Wow.
I love entrepreneur stories.
That's like entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
Yeah.
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 I don't know. It didn't feel that crazy at the time, but now when you like tell the whole just like year's worth of what happened, you're like, God, no wonder I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I think it's
literally.
I think it's interesting though, because like if you look at the end result, that's what trips so many people up with opening a small business or making a big leap. If you look at the end result, that is like overwhelming. But when you think about that over the course of a year, then you're like, well, it's very sequential. And I'm not saying there's a set path of the sequence. I'm just saying like you do this one thing or two things, and then you're like, somebody else tells you have to do this, or you learn it, or you like knew that you had to do it, whatever. But it's like, then you're working on this for a while, then you're working on this for a while.
Yeah.
So it's not like if you take apart all the pieces, like none of them are overwhelmingly hard. It's just when you add it all together and step back that you're like, oh my gosh, that's too much. But
And you also just can't stop doing
you got to keep grinding.
just anything.
It was a lot of nights and weekends that we were like working on the business, this, that, whatever. You get home from work after dinner and like putting a couple hours on this. Saturday we drive to Stillwater to work on that. Like that's just, you're kind of always like running in the background.
There's got to be a parallel with runners, but athletes in general too, and starting a business. I mean, you just described, you have a race. I have a vision for this race, right? Opening the store. And I'm just going to do what I need to and stack bricks. And when I hit roadblocks, figure it out and get around it and keep going until I open the store. You know? And then you open the store and now you're like, cool, what's my next vision? Right?
No, for sure. I think there's really good, it's another good skill set to be an endurance athlete, because you're so used to grinding. Grinding seems like a negative term, but I don't mean it in that way. I mean like a positive way. Like you're just used to having to work for stuff constantly.
Yep. 100%.
And I think a lot of endurance athletes kind of like take joy in that. Maybe not every day, but it's just like you like the big picture of like, yep, I'm working for this, and it's like even uncomfortable most of the time.
You have to be very much like happy with the process.
Yeah.
Because it's I don't even know what the outcome is. I don't even know. Like
The outcome's the process.
Yeah.
Deep.
Good question.
How did you guys come up with Wild River Running as your name? Where'd that come from?
I honestly I don't even remember.
We had Stillwater Running Company on our business
Stillwater
plan
Running.
for quite a while. And
think when we were doing like the research of like a community that could support a running store, and like it wasn't just Stillwater. Obviously, we need people from like Wisconsin and like the northern exurbs. We're like, okay, we need a different name because
Yeah,
we don't want it to just be like, oh, just
Stillwater.
for Stillwater.
And I don't know how we settled on Wild River, but I think we had thought of some other ideas that were bigger than just Stillwater, like Valley Running or something like that.
Mhm.
There's already a Valley. I think Mankato's running store is something with Valley in it. And then like also maybe it was too long. You know, you'd come up with an idea and it's like too long-winded, too much, or it's like too vague. You know, it's like there's a lot of valleys or whatever. And then just growing up in Chisago, like I was probably 9 miles from Wild River State Park. And so I'm not sure how we like settled on that, but like I do know that that's like this name of this park I loved. And if you start driving around all these towns in the valley, there's a Wild River Excavating, there's like Wild River Fitness, like it's a name that people
Associate with the St. Croix,
yeah
the St. Croix River. It's like the wild and scenic river valley.
yeah it was one of the 6 first wild and scenic like national park designated rivers.
Yeah.
That's how it got its nickname, but then that's like that just fit.
Yeah, and then once we started going with that, then we found our the guy who did our logo, Jesse Lalonde. We like sat down with him, and I think this is like, I mean, we were like, well, we were kind of thinking Stillwater Running Company, but then now we kind of like Wild River Running, and he was like, yes, like that is what we can go with that. And then he designed our logo, I think based off of that, and then also like what we talked about. I mean, what we see along the river when you're running along the river is like foxes and wildlife and other things that are running. So
Getting out of the city.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I
And
love
it's
it.
eye-catching. It's good marketing. And I also think about how when you think about running and the different avenues, shoe stores, coaching, running Rogue in Texas has a huge media platform. Like there's a lot you could potentially do with it too.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you don't have your hands full already, but
Right. Yeah. Wild River Yoga, Wild River Cross Country. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
What is the vision for Wild River now?
Keep our heads above the surface.
Be in the black.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly as far as we'll let ourselves think. For at least for me, I can't speak for Kate, but you're kind of like, you got to make it sustainable, something that we could like. I mean, our goal, we're never going to like had the goal of like becoming rich off of it or whatever, but we kind of said from the beginning, you're like, what do we need to make this like something that we'll keep doing this. It's like if we can get kind of close to where we were for teaching for finances, like for the type of life we live,
Mm-hmm.
and roughly that like same amount of time off. Obviously, you're not going to get summers off, but then you're a little bit more, you get the trade-off of a little bit more flexible. So I think if we can do that with the store we have, then sweet. I mean, we have big ideas, I think, that we've already been rolling out of like, doing a couple more road races, like especially in the shoulder season, because Run Stillwater does such a good job in the summer and spring and stuff. But like, we did one in April. Maybe we'll do a turkey trot.
Kids cross country.
Yeah.
Do, which we did through Twin Cities Track Club the past several years in Minneapolis, but we're going to start a branch out here. People have been asking for that and wanting that.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
And then I think, you'd hope at some point you get big enough that we outgrow the store, or like have to expand, even if it's just in Stillwater, like.
Mm.
So to think anything beyond that is like almost too. I mean this honestly, like I haven't really as much, like.
Well, I think we're just the fact that we just enjoy the day to day so much without really having a vacation, just like working every day. We're happy with that right now, honestly. Not that there were definitely a lot of things about teaching that we really liked, but there was just, I don't know, this added stress, and starting a business is stressful too. But it's like, when you're staying like super late at school for like parent teacher conferences or something, and then you have to go back the next day, like that's really hard. But when we have group run night and it's really nice out and people just linger for hours and then you get back late, that's really fun. And then you go to work the next day. Like it's a blast.
I have a relationship question because our pod is also focused around relationships. How is it working with your partner? And I mean, I know you guys worked at school together, but like, is it different now? And what does that look like?
It's the best.
I'd say it's about the same, honestly. It's like we already were teaching together. We were on different sides of the building. You're kind of like doing your own thing, but like I still think we kind of do our own thing, like to some extent. You know, like we have different kind of like pieces of the business that we've
Different
kind of,
strengths.
yeah, and different good just arms of the business that we've called our own, and like we'll talk to each other constantly about what the other person's doing, but I just don't think it's it's been good.
I mean, obviously there's times too where you're just like, because you think in different ways or like, you just have different strengths that, I don't know, one of us will be explaining something to the other person and you're just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So we do have some things like that, and that can be frustrating, but I think just we're used to talking shop, if you will, from teaching for so many years. You're always bouncing ideas off of each other, and basically we're just doing the same thing now.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone ever tell you that that's a bad idea, or like have doubts about that?
Yeah,
there's a mix. There's actually a lot of husband and wife running store owners too, but then there's people that say you shouldn't do it, you know, or be cautious, or like warn you about it,
or just don't start a business, period.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that will tell you that.
You guys probably heard that too.
So many times.
Yeah.
We still get told that.
Yeah.
Like in our businesses.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
You should leave and go do something else.
Yeah. And you guys met at Gustavus, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
2011. So 14
Yeah.
years ago? Give or take? 13 and a half? Yeah.
And now you have a running store together.
Now we have a running store.
It's pretty full circle.
Yeah. I mean, it started with running too, just through cross country. So, I know. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
That's adorable. We want to hear about your running as well, so that we can hit every specific section of this pod. Tell us about your personal run, like in terms of, well, actually however you want, but like where you're at right now with running and what you have coming up and things like that.
John's having really good running right now.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like anybody, if you run long enough, you're going to have ups and downs. And the ups and downs are not like, it's not like it's a race and then the next race is good. I mean, I've been running long enough now that you have a year or 3 years that are down, right? And I would say, just to be blunt about it, there is more times when you feel like it's down than when it's up. And sometimes you take those in the rearview mirror and you realize that it was actually better than you thought it was at the time. But point being is, like, I'm on an upswing right now. I don't know why, honestly. Like, I was hurt last 2023. I think it was. And so I was out for like probably a full year. Like, I kind of hobbled through a grandma's half. It wasn't bad, but its training wasn't there. And then missed the fall. I didn't race my fall race. And at times when you're barely running or taking time off, whatever. And then just kind of started building momentum in 2024 again. Kind of shook that injury off. And then this year, this is like the 2 races that I've started with. The last time I had PR'd was 2014, and it was a indoor mile, which I don't even know if that counts because I've run the mile like in high school and then like 3 times after that. So it had been a minute. I'm like 37, almost 38. I'm like, I'm done PRing, maybe the marathon if I'm not catch the right day, whatever. But I'm at peace with that for the most part. And we did our Browns Creek Breeze, our 8K, which I couldn't race. But the week before, I'm like, I need to go and time trial this. Like, I just want to see how the course runs. So I convinced a buddy the week before the Browns Creek Breeze to come pace me, Eric Teague, who's much faster than me. But I'm like, you can just tow me along, whatever. He wasn't super fit at the time anyway. And so this is going to be a little long-winded, but we hit I was like, I just want to go like 5:20 pace, see what I can do. He opened at a 5:07 for the 8K, and I was like, God dang it, Teague, like this is not what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to let him go because it's just me and him. So then otherwise it's so much easier just to throw in the cards when he walks away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with him, and we clicked the second mile, which has the bridge over Mannion on it. And it was still like 5:09 or something like that. And my PR was a 25:50 for the 8K. And that's like 5:11, 5:12 average. So I didn't want to read into that, but I'm like, man, if I can make one more mile and we hit that downhill, I mean, I let that thought creep in a little bit, right? But kind of shoved it out. You're like, that's just run each mile, right? Clicked our third mile, and we're like still 5:0 something. And I wasn't even that far off of Teague, who's just going off at this just blazing pace. And got to downtown, and I just remember thinking, like, yeah, I just got to get to that dang clock tower in 70 seconds or whatever it was. Or I looked at that watch and I'll PR. So yeah, first PR since 2014 for me, 25:38.
Congratulations.
Yeah, which it was funny because it was like classic, like old man. I mean, never not old, but like post. You're like so far out of your 20s. Like he had to go see his kid before he took a night flight, and I had to go let the dog out. So we didn't even celebrate. We like caught our breath and like jogged back up to our car, and then I like had to go like again let the dog out and make dinner. That was my celebration. But then ran Getting Gear then this last week and had my fastest time at Getting Gear since like 2015. Ran like a 33:16. So yeah, things are looking up. I mean, I'm doing kind of doing like a shorter distance build up for the first time in a while, just focusing more on speed and stuff. Scott Christensen's giving me workouts, which I feel like I'm just spoiled to have that asset. So Brian Kraft will be like the 5K goal, and then end of the year, October will be TC Marathon, or not TC, Chicago Marathon, and we'll just see what happens. You just got to, it's again been around long enough. You ride the wave. You take the good as long as you can and be happy with it. Don't take it for granted. So that's me.
How do you deal with the downtimes? Like for the people who are injured, who aren't racing right now, like,
man, take joy in some kind of cross training as much you can.
I feel you spend a lot of time outside though. Like you've been hurt, outside. Just like exploring new parks or
going for walks if you can't run.
Reserves, bird watching.
I would sit on a bench by B'nai Makaska in when I had 3 years that I was down and just chill. But it's hard to keep your head up. You kind of also just like let it go for a while too and be like, maybe this is it, and come to peace with that. But getting outside, I think, is never a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And then if you can, finding something else. Like I started getting into skiing. That was when I was hurt. That was a blessing in disguise to like get into Nordic skiing instead to have that competitive outlet. So I just think finding something else if you can, and if you can't, even if it's just outside walking.
Did those 3 years correlate with when teaching was starting to also be down for you?
I mean, I don't think teaching helps your running career. Not to be bashing teaching too much, but I mean, I never can shake that thought that I like gave up some of that top end to teach. You could train really well in the summers, but yeah, the hamstring problem, was it directly teaching? Like, probably no, but did teaching like help that? Like, not at all. Yeah.
What about you, Kate?
Well, I feel like we both can't be up at the same time. I don't know if it's like that for you guys, but I feel like if I'm doing really well, then that's when John's like not having it. And that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm enjoying running. I was hurt through the winter. I'm not really hurt anymore, but I just think it just like takes so much longer to like build back. Like your fitness comes quickly. Like I shouldn't be complaining. I went out and ran 12 miles today, but just like being able to race at the level that, that I want to is just not there yet, but at least I'm healthy-ish and doing things to hopefully like get my legs back to where they used to be. I did find this really great strength class that I started going to.
What's it called?
It's called Oak Endurance. I don't know. What is it?
Strength.
It's in the North Loop. I go on Thursday mornings.
Wait, is it Jacob Oak that
Yeah,
coaches that?
it is. It is Jacob Oak.
Oh,
Yes.
cool.
It's been really helpful. I will continue to go. I hear he might start a class in the East Metro.
We'll start that rumor
That'd
for
be beneficial.
manifesting.
Yeah. I think, well, just the older you get, the more the little things matter. You know, like I feel like in college, I just skipped weightlifting all the time. Like my hydration plan post race was not anything that I should have been hydrating with. And yeah, it's just a lot harder now. You need to like sleep and do mobility and yeah,
Strength.
strength,
Strength.
electrolytes,
Electrolytes and amino acids, which
and
I will
amino
tell you
acids
before.
before
Kaylee
coffee
reminded me to do that before
in
coffee.
the morning.
Yeah.
You're learning.
So many rules.
That is very true. I like all of last year was definitely one of those years for me where I was like the whole year I was like every single run you hope it's gonna be better and it just isn't. Like
Yep.
literally the entire year.
Yep.
And I'm happy to hear someone else that well, I'm not happy you went through that, but I'm happy to hear that it also like lingers that long for other people too. Because it wasn't until March of this year, honestly, where I was like, wow, I'm having fun with this again. It
Yeah.
was like well over a year.
Yep. Long runs.
Yeah. Years. That's a long
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you guys would like to share that we did not talk about today before we get into our we get to do this moment?
No. I mean, not on
I
my.
don't think so. We covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your whole story. So after every podcast or during every episode, we always ask our guests what your we get to do this moment is. So that can be from today, this week, your entire life. What was a moment where you're like, wow, like I get to do this? And I'd love to hear from both of you, whoever wants to go first.
You have something?
If you have it off the top of your head, you can go, but I get you're not good.
Yeah. Well, like we were kind of talking about just the other day at the race, I think anytime that I'm like getting up really early to go do something or like staying late and getting home, later than I typically would, it's all like fun. Like we're just doing really fun things. Like yesterday morning, getting up, I was driving to Wisconsin across the bridge at like 5:30 in the morning, and the sunrise was just beautiful. And you're like so tired, but you're just like, wow, this is so cool that I get to do this for my job, like drive to a trail race and then go run with people and let them demo shoes. Yeah, same thing with like the Tuesday evening runs, like I was talking about, when you just have the most perfect day and people hang out afterwards and everyone's in a good mood and they're meeting new people and you're meeting new people to run with. It feels so good. It's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, honestly, most times when it's busy and people are having like a good experience, it's like a reverse from teaching when you're like, this is awesome. Because there's like
When it's like really chaotic.
Yeah. And I'm sure at some point that'll flip, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just too much. But like right now, that piece is like, you're just like floored that there's that many people that want to like go to your shop and stuff. Like I'd say like the one moment from this week, we had this like couple from Somerset come in and they were like so happy we were open and stuff. And that was just like, that's awesome. We kind of like were able to build this, and like these visions that you had, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, that coming to fruition is really cool. So
Our store is so small too that I feel like when there are like a lot of people in there buying shoes at the same time, you end up kind of like shopping with another person next to you. So then like everyone's like giving opinions and like saying, oh, you should actually try this shoe. It really worked for me. And so that ends up being really, really fun. Just like boxes of shoes everywhere.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Love
community.
it.
You're building community,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which you're
Yeah.
doing a great job of it.
Yeah, you guys,
Thanks.
you're amazing.
Oh gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, like great to
Back
talk
at you.
to. Yeah, right back at you, like-minded people.
Yeah.
Yeah, really happy we connected with all of us. And speaking of connecting, can you plug your community runs that you have every week? And then
yeah.
how can people stay connected with you and find you, follow you?
Yeah, so we have a Tuesday evening run at 6 o'clock p.m. We're meeting from the store and we'll continue to meet from the store, but we're also alternating now with Trail Tuesdays, which starts this coming Tuesday. So to get information, there's a link on our Instagram at Wild River Running. You could also go to our website and select the tab at the top that's like Run with the Wild, and get information that way. So you'll be on our email list. And then we also have a Friday morning run at 6:30 a.m. and we call it Breakfast Club because a lot of people just hang out and drink coffee and eat sugary cereal afterwards or donuts. And we have, I mean, our pace ranges are huge. So like, we're open to any pace, any ability. Coming to the runs, we typically start together, but then because we just have so much variety of paces, we just spread out and people just like make new friends, find connections. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll also link those things into show notes. So if any listeners want to join a group run, should definitely do that. We need to do that still too. But thank you for providing this to the community. Clearly it was needed on East Side especially. So, and just thanks for being you guys. You're awesome. So we really appreciate you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Right back at ya.
Wow, Kaylee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
We would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this.